The Open Highway podcast is a production of Viking Dog Entertainment, and now you can visit the all-new Viking Dog store for access to everything that Viking Dog has to offer. Movies, books, and apparel, including motivational lines, open highway merchandise, and exclusive wolf designs that raise money for wolf rescue organizations. So visit thevikingdogstore.com today. Red lights on. Now you get all nervous. So I was looking at your artwork, and you have different styles. You do. I personally was really drawn to the more abstract stuff because that's
Me
just
too.
my background.
I love that. I call it expansive. I have over the years reinvented myself all the time. I don't, and I know the word branding, I should have one look for everything, but I don't. And I love to learn. I'm constantly changing. I want to get more and more contemporary, more and more abstract. And so, so right now I say I am a contemporary painter who does florals, abstracts, and figurative. So,
and you've been painting for about 20 years? Is that right?
Yeah, about 20 years. And before that, I was in industry. I have a degree in art, but that doesn't really count because they don't really teach you how to be an artist at the universities. But
very true.
Yeah, you learn that along the way. But for about 20 years, I've been full-time in my studio. I'm here 6 days a week. I'd be here 7, but I'm married and he likes to see me. So I stay home on Sundays.
But you have to suffer for your art. So he has to suffer too, doesn't he? Isn't that a requirement?
Yeah. The yin yang thing. I did not marry an artist. He is just the opposite. He's a numbers guy. I'm, the flighty, freaky one. He's very buttoned up, Oxford shirts kind of guy.
How long have you been married?
22 years. And it's a great marriage.
Okay, so wait a second. Hold on. Let's crunch those numbers real quick. So you started painting about 20 years ago and you got married about 20 years ago.
Right.
Which came first?
The marriage, actually. I was working full-time in industry. Actually, at the very end, I was doing broadcast sales for radio and television to have the money freedom to pursue my art. So once I married him, I started job sharing at a television station where I sold airtime commercials, and I convinced him that I would work my art like a job. And I work harder for myself than I ever worked for any employer. So about 20 years ago, I started full-time being an artist, and, it takes it. I mean, you have to do all your own marketing. You have to keep your website up. You've got to do social media there. You got to photograph. Well, I've got to photograph my art. There's just so much to it. It's a full-time job and I love it. So
you speaking of social media, like I took a look at your Instagram. You have 20,000. Give or take 20,000 followers there. That's pretty good
10.
for a painter.
Thank you. But I have been stagnant for a while. I don't get social media. I mean, I don't get Instagram sometimes. I can post the same thing on Facebook and get a ton of response. Right now, I don't know. My social media. So everybody out there follow me because my social media has been stagnant for a while and I don't know why. I try to post entertaining, educational, fun things, and also, shots of my art and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't understand the algorithms, or however you say that word. I don't understand why some posts do really well and others don't, so.
Yeah, it's all about the algorithm. It really.
Yeah.
Have you done the TikTok yet?
I don't do TikTok. I do Reels.
Reels?
I do Reels.
Now, they say that if you use Reels on Instagram, the algorithm will actually up your interactions.
I
That's
hear
that's
you.
what the specialists say, and we know we're supposed
I
to listen to
know.
them. So
I do a lot of reels. I do a lot of lives. For a while, before I went on vacation this summer, I was doing a live every Friday. And really, they got to be kind of fun where you just
mhm.
kind of break into the day and do a live and, basically talk about whatever, nothing, everything. And I went on vacation and I need to get them started back up because once I went on vacation, I stopped and I need to start them again. But I do all that reels, I have a great editing app and the whole bit.
Do
So,
you find it do you find it helpful as an artist, or do you find it detracting from what you do?
sometimes I gotta tell you, sometimes I'm annoyed that my camera stand falls over. I have probably 5 different camera stands to put my camera on. You think it would be simple, but
Mhm.
then like this morning, I got all set up and I noticed all my lights were making weird shadows, and it's just not easy. I wish I had a person to photograph everything for me. That would be great, but I've got to get it set up and get it stationary so it doesn't fall into the art. And that's kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah, I'm not, I would post even more videos if I had a magic stand that worked every time, but I
Yeah.
don't. So
It's all the
yeah,
sidelines that you have to do as an artist. You just want to get back to the paint. You just want to
right.
get back to the canvas.
And then there's times where I'm all set up, it's perfectly positioned in the whole bit, and I forget to turn it on. That's another one. Yeah. So
Done that.
I'm all done with the painting, and I go to turn off my camera and it was never turned on. So that's always fun.
And you just
So
gave an amazing monologue on the history of acrylics or some sort of
right, right.
totally inspired
That's
inner
right.
monologue
Award
kind of thing.
winning, right.
You're like,
And
dang
and
it,
it's gone.
poof, and
Right.
you can't recreate it.
No, no, nor do I
Oh,
want to.
can't you put your husband to work?
Please.
Can't you put your
Pardon?
husband to work as a
Yeah,
cameraman?
maybe once he down the road decides to get out of his business, but no, not right now. And that is one of my beefs, because an awful lot of the male painters out there have their wives helping, and wouldn't that be fun? I always said
Oh,
that would be a great thing to have. But and even hiring people to help, that's a long process. You got to take time out to get in all the resumes, go through them all. It's just hard to even hire
yeah.
people to help you in business. So
Yeah, it's difficult. And you're probably not, I mean, your paintings, you've sold a number of them, I'm guessing, and you're you're not struggling on a street corner being like,
no,
here's my $10 painting, please, I need food. But at the same time,
no.
you're not working with these large profit margins where you can hire an entire team and do everything. That's
What's the
so well, I was just
sorry?
gonna ask, so one day I went to a couple art shows lately. And one thing I've kind of felt like, and I'm curious about what you think, coming out of COVID, there's this different kind of, there's this, some of the art that seems to be coming out of COVID is very angst driven,
Hmm.
as what I've seen, just very, just angst driven. And then there seems to be another angle of kind of almost comfort painting, where it's familiar. Did you see yourself as an artist? Did COVID affect you in any sort of way like that?
It didn't really affect the paintings I was painting. I actually, when COVID first started, my business had a huge influx of sales
Really?
because, yeah, everybody that was going on that trip, that cruise, that whatever, canceled all that, and they decided to spend money on their houses. And I did a bunch of commissions. I sold a bunch of paintings, and it's kind of evened out now because we're all we're in our second year of COVID. So
Yeah.
all of us are traveling some and doing all of that. But it didn't change my subject matter. I always have tons of things in my brain that I can't wait to paint. So,
Hmm.
and I have to quit watching the news. I can't watch every 5 seconds of what's going on with COVID because I'll get paralyzed and not get out of bed. So,
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of the, ostrich with its head in the ground because I just can't take that in. I can't. So I just went on my merry little way with my art and continued what I was doing.
But you're not, so your art inspiration doesn't come from, you're not the, I must pull my heart from my chest and put it on the canvas because this painting speaks to the peril of the people in Syria. That's not
Yeah.
kind of your forte.
No, there's others out there that do that really well. My heart doesn't need to do that. So I am much more into, I want to put more beauty in the world. There's plenty of ugliness out there. And I don't, I have done some quote, not political, but social type things. I did 3 paintings for Alzheimer's for a competition that helped people with Alzheimer's. And, my mom had Alzheimer's, so it was a easy thing for me to, hitch my wagon to. But I don't do a lot of social paintings. Yeah.
Mm. Do you find yourself looking for validation in your paintings, in your work?
Don't we all? I mean, yeah, I guess that comes back to the why. Why do I paint? And
Yeah.
I think I paint because I tend to disappear in social situations. I can be introduced to the same person 10 times. They never remember me, that kind of thing. I can be at a party and then I find I'm off by myself. So I guess I paint to be heard, and that's kind of, or to be validated. I
Yeah.
do. I paint to, to leave something behind, to have something that I've created and that is outside of my social circles and all that kind of craziness. It's just me. So,
Well, it's a legacy, isn't it?
yeah,
But
it
it's a
is.
personal, it's different than somebody who's a corporate CEO or a billionaire who's like, I want to put my stamp. Bill Gates, I want my Nobel Prize. I want this. Let's put the stamp
Right.
on the world. It's a legacy of your ideas and what you've created.
Right. And I can't wait to paint. I have so many ideas that I can't wait to paint.
So
So,
where do you find your inspiration? Like do you find it from people, from situations, from feelings? Where does it come from?
well, I don't really, I, like I said, there's just so many things I can't wait to do. I study a lot with other people. I'm always learning, and
Mhm.
looking at other people's art inspires me. It makes, builds a fire under me to get started.
Who do
And,
you like? Like, what are some of the artists
oh,
that you do like?
oh, well, for figurative, I love Dan McCall is on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And his 2 sons are now painting now, and they're doing beautifully. But Dan started out as more of a impressionist, realist kind of thing, and now his paintings are so contemporary and they're just really beautiful. So I've always loved his work all along. It's just really lovely. Gosh, who else do there's so many great abstract painters out there. I love when I see something and I can't figure out exactly how they did it. I'm like,
Oh,
you can always tell the artist that's in a museum or an art gallery because they're looking at the side, down the face of the painting. It's a whole different thing than just the front,
yeah.
because it's just, we want to know how they do that.
Yeah.
So let's see, who else do I
You can
love?
always see them at the art. I do it too because I think I told you that my mom got me painting. She's been painting
Oh,
for about probably about as long as you have, but she it was always a sideline for her. It was always something that she enjoyed
Right,
doing. It wasn't about, selling. And you remind me a little of each other because she's got that same, like, always wants to try something new. And
right.
she's always looking at it. And I'll send her photos. I'm like, oh, I just saw this painting. She's like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
She just got into spin art. That was one with the drill, where
With the
you
drill.
attach the canvas to a drill, pour the
Yeah.
paint on it, and then you spin it and you get these spin things. So she's very into
Oh,
that. In her 70s, and
wow.
she's out in the backyard with the drill. Um, but yeah, like I'll go, you'll always notice the artists at the shows because they're up like 2 inches from the work and they got the camera out and they're like, how did this stroke work? And what's
Right.
the medium that they used on this? Um, one of my favorite, I guess I'm not going out on a limb by saying this, but one of my favorite painters is Jackson Pollock. And I'll get
Oh,
into
yeah.
any discussion where people are like, oh, well, he's just throwing paint at the canvas. I'm like, no, 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 no.
No.
And I was lucky at the LA Art Show, they supposedly have discovered a bunch of lost paintings of his.
Oh,
And they had an exhibit, and you got to get up they had magnifying glasses, and you could get up, and they're like, here's his drip, and this is how it worked and everything. You can get right up on it and just
yeah.
notice. I was there with somebody, and I was trying to show her. She's not a fan of his work, and I'm like, yeah, but look at the way it dripped on the canvas. I've tried this. I
Yeah.
know what he did, why it's so amazing. And there's that study that in fractals and all of that kind of stuff, that there's a reason that we respond to his work. But you're so right. Like you can see the artist at the art show. They're the ones like
Right.
right up against the canvas.
Actually, I've watched some great documentaries about Jackson Pollock, and it's amazing to see his early work and how it moves on into where he's doing all the drips. He didn't start with the drips. He started elsewhere, moved into it, just like Picasso. I mean, Picasso was a realist in the beginning and, drew like all artists do in the beginning and, just continued to evolve. And that's the same with Jackson Pollock. Everybody knows those paintings and they think, oh, I can do that. But you don't understand what he went through to get to that point. So
Yeah. Do you have, I'm
yeah.
sure you have in the corner your study section or your practice canvases where you try that technique and it's all about the technique. It's
Right.
about the
Right.
experiment.
Right.
And then people come
The
into your
mark
studio, you're
taking.
like, don't look at those. Don't look at those.
Yeah. I don't put them out, but you're right. I've got a bunch of them. And sometimes I cut them up and put them in other paintings, or I cut them down in size and maybe they work as a smaller piece. And yeah, there's
But
all
you're always
kinds of
learning
tricks.
something from it. There's
Yes.
always,
Mhm.
do you, do you have a painting where you were experimenting with something and 99% of it went wrong, but there's that 1% where you're like, oh, well, that's a stroke. I can use that. I like that brush. That worked really
That's right.
well.
I'm also, this is weird for an artist, but I'm also a golfer. And I think you're describing my golf game. I have one good hole and 17 bad holes. And I'm like, oh, look at that. I have one good hole. So
That
yes,
seems like
but
an artist who golfs. That seems
I
very, because
know,
it's so like
I know.
focused and controlling. But
Yeah, it is. But you never get the same lie. You never have the same shot. You've got all these clubs that are different lengths that do all different stuff. It's really, it's some of the most beautiful scenery on earth. So
well,
anyway,
tell me you at least
that's one
have
of
like
my.
a tell me you at least have like a tricked out golf bag with like that you painted the bag or you did something funky to it. Come on.
I've always had really funky golf bags. Yeah.
Uh, you
I
painted your
love all
shoes.
that. Yeah, yeah. You get that license when you're an artist to be the wacky one in anybody's group. So
Isn't it fun?
it is. It is. Yeah.
You get to
I've got like
you get to be
2
yourself.
wardrobes. I've got my art wardrobe and I've got to go to a golf match at a country club wardrobe. They're not the same.
Do people expect that of you then? Like as an artist, do you think people expect you to be kind of funky or are they disappointed sometimes where they're like, oh, well, I thought you'd be more Where's your Picasso mustache? What's the
Yeah, really.
your
No,
loud suit?
well, I would say I have my art friends and my friends that aren't in the art world. And, I think they think the other people that aren't in the art world might think, it's a hobby, and they don't understand I put 60 to 80 hours in a week. And, if they want me to go to lunch, I've got on paint clothes with, paint all over them. And I don't know that they get how much I work. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a much better artist than golfer because I don't put any time into golf. I just, but yeah, I don't think they quite get it. They think, what a nice little hobby that she has,
Oh, a hobby. Ouch. That's
Yeah, that's a bad
do
word.
you so as you evolve as an artist, is there a point where you kind of felt like you there's a point where it moves from hobby to work, obviously, because you sell something. That's one way that society puts professional. Now you're a professional baseball player because you're getting paid for it, or
Right.
whatever. um but emotionally, artistically, is there a point where you kind of start to go, oh wow, I'm a real artist? Or does that stick with you forever, that you're still trying to figure it out or validate it within your own work?
No, I kind of get it now, but it is funny when I have to call somebody about a piece they sell or whatever, and I say, this is Carol MacConnell, I'm the artist. That still feels weird to roll off my tongue, but it's kind of like a secret I have inside me. I love that I'm an artist. I love that I don't need everybody to get it. I get it. I get that I'm an artist,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really I I don't tell it's not what I lead with. If people want to ask me about it, everybody wants to say, "Oh, what do you paint?" That's their first question.
Yeah.
What do you paint? And they don't quite get it. They don't get all the stuff that we go through to be artists. It's a hobby to them.
Yeah.
So
Until you're hanging in the gallery or you've been anointed by the proper artistic authorities.
right, right.
Well, how do you feel
Yeah.
about that? Like there's that whole idea that I don't think it's like it used to be, because now we have such a ability through social media, like you were talking about, to reach out to audiences. But there was this point where it was literally like you would be anointed. Oh, you are the new artiste. You are the new
Yeah.
hip thing. Oh no, you were so last year. We don't work in black and whites now. It's all color. Or no, we don't do oils now. It's all acrylics. What do you have? What do you think about that system?
Well, I love those people that break through, that have, like, um, is it Ashley Longshore? Do you know
Mm,
her? She's a very provocative artist that, she's crazy and fun, and she just has this whole brand. But she worked hard to get to the point where she broke through with her craziness and ended up on Project Runway. She's been on all kinds of shows, and she's just really done well. It's kind of like that overnight success thing where they put in tons of years, but people think they're an overnight success.
yeah.
She's put in all those years, but I'm still waiting for mine, where I break through and everybody says, "Oh my God, I've got to have one of your pieces," and you can basically paint on top of cardboard and people buy it. That hasn't happened yet. So I'm still waiting for the craziness, but
What about so I've known some painters who, I've known some artists who, while they're very, very talented, I think it was more of cult of personality that got their stuff sold than the actual
interesting.
paintings. Um,
Hmm.
what do you think? Like, 'cause, I mean, that's our social media world now. It's like, oh, well, I'm
Yeah.
not buying something because it speaks to me. I'm buying it because that's the hip thing. I mean, that's nothing new. I mean, art going back hundreds of years, it was like, well,
Right.
this was painted by so and so. Oh,
Right.
it's an apple, but it was painted by so and so.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know, it's you want to be known for the work. You don't want to be known for the personality.
Right,
You know,
right.
we could
And
say that
I
about
tend,
Warhol. We could say that, you could say that about Picasso to a certain extent, I think. You know, how many people in this world have a Picasso print or a Picasso painting, especially toward the end where he was doing them to pay for his meals, and there were so many
yeah,
of them. But it's not because they enjoy the painting or they enjoy the artwork. It's because, oh, well, that's a Picasso.
right,
You
right.
know,
And there is some of that out there where, they've done it basically on social media. I mean, I know some artists that are just really good marketers more than they are good artists.
yeah,
And, that has worked for them because there is that mystique or something that people want to buy whatever the neighbor has or whatever is the new big thing.
yeah,
And I think that's one reason galleries, people that buy from galleries, I think a lot of time, and I'm in galleries, but I think a lot of times it gives you the validation that your work is good because it's in a gallery. And a lot of people don't have the confidence to buy a painting off, at a outdoor show or we have an opening once a month in my building and we get, hundreds of people. But sometimes there are people that need the gallery to tell them it's good. That's a good painting. You can buy that painting. Nobody will think that you bought something stupid. That's a good painting.
well,
So
that's the dog playing poker argument. No, it is because think about, I'm like, how many there's people who absolutely love that painting or
yeah,
that print,
there
and they
are.
love it. It
Mhm.
speaks to them. But if
Right,
you any art dealers are going to be like, get that crap off your wall.
right,
We can say
right,
the same thing for Velvet Elvis. It's,
right,
if it speaks to
exactly.
you, and it makes you smile and makes you feel good when you look at it, who is someone else to tell you that that's not art?
Well, that makes art art. It's what you personally respond to,
Yeah,
and there's art out there for every individual because it's so varied. Art can be all different kinds of things. I used to be more of I did a lot of realistic paintings. And there are some people that follow me who are like, well, I liked when you painted ballerinas, or I liked when you did landscapes. My husband, for one, but they don't understand that you've moved ahead and you've learned more, and that's not where you want to be anymore. But there are those that think that it has to be a realistic painting to be a good painting. If they don't understand it, I think it was Picasso who said, they asked him what his painting meant. And he said, sometimes paintings are just meant to be looked at.
mm.
There's not a big meaning, you just made a pleasing looking collection of things on a canvas and it worked. And there's not some deep-seated message behind it. So
Yeah. Are there things that you still struggle with, um technically? Like, are there still techniques that you're pushing yourself with, that you're trying new things, that you're,
sure,
like what?
yeah.
What, I'm very
Well,
curious. As an art student myself, I'm like, okay, what I'm having
I
issues
just
with blending. What are you having issues with?
I just learned a new technique actually today that I didn't know how this guy did it. And it's actually, I'm going to play around with some large charcoal paintings, mixed media kind of things. And
Mhm.
he was doing these things with alcohol. And I know that alcohol dissolves charcoal and makes really good, really cool marks and everything, but I couldn't figure out how he was doing it. So he had a a workshop online that I purchased, and I'm like, oh my God, all he did was put alcohol in a little container and throw some shavings of graphite in there, mix it up and use it like paint. I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. Here I am lusting after what he's doing. And basically it's the most basic thing, but I'm still constantly learning. There's a woman, I do a lot of what I call fluid acrylic paintings, and they are virtually brushless. I start with canvas that is not stretched, just right off the roll, and I put it on different height supports, and then I figure out how the paint will pour, and I mix that paint and pour it, and then it falls in different, patterns and things. You probably saw it on my website.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a woman that's in the South somewhere who's doing a technique similar to mine. I mean, she doesn't support them on different size things, but she is able to do some sort of something where she pulls the paint with a brush and gets a similar effect. I have no idea how she does it. It's fascinating. And she's not sharing it. I don't blame her. She's got a great market, And I do the same thing, but differently, but I would love to know how she's pulling that paint. And I still don't know. And I've been, I've tried different things, try to teach myself. Sometimes, we overthink way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are much simpler, but I haven't hit upon it yet. So there's still many things that, that I still am learning, like composition as far as abstracts go. I think that is a very hard thing to learn, the balance, what makes a good abstract, what makes you want to look at it for years and years to come. And, there's a lot. I love a great abstract. You see a lot of not good abstracts, but when you hit one that is just so good, it's just, it's incredible. And a lot of that is layering and, scraping back through, and I don't know, but it also has to do with the composition, the lights and darks, there's a lot to it. So
presentation, I believe that presentation plays a lot into it too, because the abstracts that I do, I play a lot with texture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take a picture of it, you're like, oh, well, this is what I'm working on. It's so flat. And I'm like, no, you need to see this live. And I'm like, there's a half inch of texture on that part of it or whatever. And so it's presentation, a lot of it. And simple, stupid thing that I never really thought of until I started going to a lot of art shows is framing. I never realized how important a good frame really is to an artwork.
It's very important. Or some abstracts look really good gallery wrapped, but the right frame can really pull it together. And like right now, a lot of interior designers are using a floater frame, which is like, it's just a little tiny frame that goes around the edge. And I think those are really beautiful because it gives it that finished look, but it doesn't say, look at me, I'm a ornate frame, so.
I was at one art show and I was looking at this artist's paintings, and she thought I was absolutely in love with her paintings and I absolutely despised them, but I loved the frame. So
I get people say that.
I felt so bad.
When I was more of a realist, I would have people walk in my studio and say, I love your frames, which really, that's not a nice thing to say. That's saying your artwork sucks, but you have really great frames,
I think I've caught in grief for this over the years because people get annoyed when I say this, but I can appreciate certain artwork. I can look at it and be like, okay, I understand what went into it. I understand the skill. I see what you were going for. I see the technical aspect of it. Bravo. I get that. But emotionally, it doesn't speak to me. There's no connection. I don't want to hang it on my wall. Doesn't mean that I don't think that you're validated in your price or your work or whatever you're doing. I just don't want it hanging over my mantle because I don't emotionally connect to it. And it's just me. Now there's other stuff that I've looked at, and I'm sure you're the same way, where I just went, wow, that was a waste of paint. But it's not. It sounds cruel, but you know what I mean. It's my thing lately is I think too many people, and I don't expect you to throw yourself out there, but my personal thing is I'm getting very I see so many people using other people's work, whether it's Disney or cartoons or figures, and then just throwing some paint on it, reworking a little bit and being like, well, here's my work. And I was like, no, that's Walt Disney's work. You just threw some paint on it. And I'm
right,
like, sorry, you're not Andy Warhol. You're not
right.
creating this statement. And I think there's too much of that out there. And this is my
There's a
opinion.
ton of, yeah.
My opinion.
Well, it is hard because I'm in a building with 200 artists, and there's a lot of people who move in that are new artists that haven't painted long. And really, they say you need to do 1,000 paintings before you know what you're doing with paint. You don't know how to push paint around until, you've done quite a few. And
Yep.
some people, their paint is so thin on there that I think, oh my God, it's basically a wash, which is what you put in the background of a painting. But there are people that like that work. So there's a kind of a crude saying, there's an ass for every seat. And I guess that there's a painting style for everybody out there, but when you kind of know what you're doing, it's hard to see really bad art, it's hard
Yeah.
to.
And we all started somewhere. Like I'm nowhere near
Right.
1,000 paintings. I think I'm coming up on 100, so
Well,
I'll
that's
take
good
that and
though.
run with it.
That is good.
But I remember there, like I personally, the first couple, I hung them on my walls and I was kind of like, oh yeah, hey, this is great. And then I got to the next batch and I looked at the first batch and I was like, okay, those need to go. Those,
Yeah.
and you can incrementally see the jumps. And it's with any skill. It's you look back and it's whether you're playing baseball or you're painting or you're hosting a podcast, whatever. It's you see the jumps where the skill set gets up
Right.
and it
The
jumps up.
evolution of the
Yeah.
whole thing. Yeah.
But there was a point, like I can look, and there's a point with mine. I'm sure you have the same experience where I can see this massive line that just where I was painting one night and like the light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my God, if I do this with my paint, and if I use this instrument and I use this medium and I use this, I can get my inner feelings, my inner vision onto that canvas. And when I hit that moment where I was able to create what I saw in my mind on that painting, it was night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day.
That's amazing. I mean, I love when I can't figure out what to do next on a painting, and then in a dream or just walking along, all of a sudden it'll just hit me. It'll just pop in my head. It's like, you need to do this. And, so to have an epiphany like you had, that'd be really fabulous.
I wish I had more of them.
Me too. I wish I had them every day.
Epiphany
a day.
How long does it take? Like, I know every painting's different and every style's different, but about how long does it take to you to do let's say one of your abstracts? How long do you spend on it?
Well, there's the thing about painting is, especially commissions, people want to think that you've worked weeks and weeks on their painting, but really when the magic happens, it happens quick. And paintings that I do fast that work are light years ahead of paintings where, beat the old dead horse kind of thing. I mean, sometimes it's like that painting's never going to work. It doesn't matter that you have 3 weeks, 4 months into it. It's not going to work. You need to paint over it. But so that's a really hard one to answer. I love when paintings, what I call fall on the canvas, where I've done very little to get them to be there, and they're fresh and they're beautiful, and the magic happens. I hate when I'm laboring for a painting to work. That doesn't work. I just took a whole bunch of small paintings that I did on paper, and I don't like any of them, so I decided I was going to paint over them all. And it's really fun to do that because I call it giving them a facelift, but it's just really fun to give them new life. You've learned more, more, I can't live with some of the old things. So yeah, I guess, I paid full time. So I'm here from 8:39 in the morning, take my dog out for lunch. So I go home for that. And then I'm here till 5 o'clock, 5 days a week. And then I come in Saturdays, 9 to noon. So I have tons of hours in my studio, and that's just on a normal week. If I've got something I have to get done, I'm in here, I'm on Saturday, Sunday, much longer or whatever. But I would say a week or so to do a 48 by 48. But I also work in series a lot. So I might have 3 paintings going at once, which is really fun because you work on one and you get it to a point where it's not working anymore. And you say, okay, I'm done with that. You go to a fresh canvas that you've been working on and you start working on that. And it just constantly, you keep the mojo going, because once you're stuck on one, you just go to a new one and start working there. And then you go to the third one and come back to the first one, and something that happens on the third one, you can do on the first one. So I rarely work on just one at a time.
I think that's a misconception that people have, that painters will only work on one piece at a time, that it's the angsty French smoking beret wearing artiste who's like, I cannot do anything until I finish this. I must go have my wine. But it's the same. Like, I have a friend of mine is a well-known artist in Las Vegas who does murals, and he does all sorts of different things. And I know he's got number of paintings at any given time in his studio that he's working on. I know, in my little world here with my little student stuff, I probably have 3 or 4 different ones I'm working on at any time. Spread out on the floor, because I still do the Jackson Pollock painting on the floor thing. But I think there's this misconception that the artiste is not the artiste, that the artiste is so like pulled up into this child of theirs that they can't do anything else. And it's not. It's craftsmanship. You're working on different projects. It's a skill set,
Right. I think a lot of realists might only work on one at a time. I have a lot of friends that are realists. It seems like they concentrate on one painting, like
one theme, though.
One painting at a time.
One painting.
Yeah, that they don't work in series as much, because they're, it's more of a, like, what do I want to call it? It's like an advanced skill where they're going to paint everything they see in the photo that they're looking at, which is, it's quite a skill to build up. For me, that it's not what makes a great painting. I mean, I love some of them, but a lot of times if I can shoot it with the camera, then why should I take all my time and put that same thing on the canvas?
What inspires you? What gets those? Yeah. Do you listen? So when you're painting, like, do you listen to music, or what do you do in your studio? No,
I've got a crazy fast brain, and music's not enough. I've got to have a podcast. I've got to have a documentary. I've got to have trash TV. I've got to have something talking in my head.
Oh, trash TV! Okay, wait. I can't let that go. Trash TV. What are you watching or listening to?
You name it.
Ambient noise.
Well, I love as far as trash TV, I love any, like, Project Runway. I just, eat that up with a spoon. I love where creative people are competing or whatever. I love all that kind of stuff. Podcasts. I do listen to a lot of art ones, and then I get into the true crime. I don't know what's with me in true crime, but I tend to watch some of it. I'm just fascinated by the human mind. So, but there are some really good art ones that I listen to, and sometimes I can't take the art ones because I'm like, yeah. So you're doing great, and I'm having a bad week. Good for you.
Does it? Because it's weird, because I do the same thing. I do when I'm writing, I can't do it because I need my full on ability to put words together. I can't do that with Project Runway in the background, although that's not my voice of choice when it comes to background stuff, I'll admit. But for me, maybe, is this how it is for you? Is it almost a meditative thing where it's like, if it can distract that part of your brain, that way the artistic part can kind of flow freely? It's like a noisy meditation in a weird way.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing is, it keeps me planted. Sometimes when something really good happens on the canvas, I'll have to go walk the halls of the building. I'm just so, I got so much energy going. So it keeps me in front of the easel. It keeps me there because I'm got some crazy show, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching at the same time. And a lot of times I just listen to them because I can't be looking because I'm painting. But
Yeah.
nothing with no foreign films. I can't
Right.
read the subtitles, but I can't just do music unless I just play the same song over and over and over again. I can do that,
I
but I
do
can't
that
just,
too.
yeah, I can't go from one song to the next. That just doesn't work for me. I don't
So
know.
one thing that works for me, and I totally understand what you're saying, is so I'm music is very big for me, but it's the same thing. Sometimes it's not enough.
Right.
So one thing that works really well, I'm a big Elton John fan. I
Oh,
really,
yeah.
and I'll listen to the album on loop or a song on loop for
Right.
certain paintings. The Rocket Man movie that came out works
Yeah.
perfectly
Loved it.
for me because you've got the music and then you've got the story, and
Right.
then the neat thing is you can turn away from the canvas for a moment and kind of just suck into whatever the
Right.
visuals for 30
It's,
seconds, 60 seconds. And then you turn back to the canvas and it's like looking away from like those, remember those magic eye things? It's like you got to relax
yeah.
your eyes for a second. And you come back and you're like, there's the stroke I've been trying to figure out. There's the
Right.
area. This is what I need,
Yeah.
you know.
One of my songs is it Viva La Vida? I don't know if I'm Coldplay's song.
Coldplay,
I don't
yeah.
know. Oh, that I just can play that over and over again. It's just a really powerful song for me.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that
I've
song.
I've done a couple paintings with Coldplay on loop. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
Coldplay haters out there. I don't
I
understand it. I'm
know.
like,
I know. And I
I'm
can't
like,
say I know all their work, but some of it just, I think that song is genius. It's just really incredible.
it's sometimes you can I'll actually feel like that you can channel the music into the strokes. And I know that sounds very like touchy feely artsy, but
Yeah.
man, there's just sometimes you're getting in there and you're just letting it fly.
I
Not saying the end result's any good, but it's like,
I have tried that. When that song's on loop, I try to paint to it, and I'm not. It's not very successful for me, but it is really fun to do. Because it's
yeah,
just
that's when you want to be Jackson Pollock and you're like, that there's that footage out there. There's not a lot of it, but there's some of that footage where he always had that cigarette in his mouth and
yeah,
he would do like
yeah,
the first couple strokes, then he would throw the cigarette and you're like, he's got to light on fire. It's got
right,
to happen. He's going to blow up some turpentine can or something.
right.
And
Yeah, you
but
always hit
that
with cigarette.
yeah, that movement of because that's what they said that he did is he was doing the strokes in the air and he was feeling the actual strokes. And I've heard stories that one of his paintings he was reacting to Vietnam, and it was like there was something going on, and he was channeling his energy through the
Oh,
painting. So when you look
that
at his
yeah,
painting, that's when you get into the what is it the esoteric touchy feely artistic stuff about painting. It's like, oh well, I can see his anger in the painting dealing with
right,
Johnson in Vietnam, and or he's
right,
just like, no, that was a cool loop. I like it in the air.
right.
It looked really cool after his sixth gin
Sometimes
and tonic. Yeah.
reading people's reviews of paintings, sometimes I'm like, what? Because they're going on and on about this and that. I'm like, oh man, I don't know where you're coming from with that. But it is interesting because normally they're not painters. So
No.
do you love watching movies of, because you do a lot, right? You're a filmmaker, you're an
Hmm.
actor, you're all these things. Don't you? I love watching movies that are about artists and how they portray us, like, because it's never really true, but I love watching it just to get a little glimpse of what people think it's like,
Oh, I
do you?
do. I do. That's exactly what it is. It's like a glimpse of what goes on it in our mind. I mean, there,
Right.
exactly because you're married to a civilian. You're married to you're married to,
Exactly.
that's what we call them. They're civilians.
They
They don't
are.
understand. And I don't know how many dates I've gone on where they're like, you have artistic temperament. I don't know if I can date you. And it's like,
Oh.
well, I'm a multi hyphenate. What can I say? And then it's like, I like the other ones too. Like, have you seen Big Eyes?
Hmm.
About the Tim Burton movie
Yeah,
about, yeah, like that to me was fascinating because it wasn't
me
just the
too.
painting, it was the psyche that went in to take advantage
Right,
of the painter
right.
and all of that. We're very vulnerable people, no matter how much we want to puff up our chest and pretend that that we're not. But I
I
mean, come
think,
on, we're putting ourselves out there, whether it's
right,
painting or writing or
to be
filmmaking or
judged.
whatever. Yeah, it's like, here's how I feel.
Yeah.
And you can take a knock, man. If you can really get hit and fall backwards. I know I've had that. I'm sure at some points in your career
Oh,
you've taken a smack or two.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And you think, why am I doing this? But there's a new Bob Ross movie I recommend. I think it's on Netflix.
Mm.
Who knew that Bob Ross had, but the whole thing's pretty fascinating. I recommend it.
I saw the trailer for that. I haven't watched it yet. He's taken a lot of flack over the years though, because some people are just
You're
the
right.
you
But
know
that guy,
formulaic.
he
It's like, well,
he he absolutely was, but he knew branding unbelievably. Before branding was a word, that guy knew how to brand himself. And it's really amazing. And then he got caught up with people who took advantage of him and basically stole his company. So it's
yeah.
all pretty fascinating.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, the branding, because the modern world is now finally, we talked about a little bit with social media, but now you can really take control of your work, the way you're perceived, the way you sell. It's, you don't have to just rely on the galleries. There's websites. You've got Saatchi. You've got all these different websites where you can really get your stuff out there professionally. It's not just an ad on Craigslist anymore.
Yeah, you're right.
It's
But the thing about that is all that takes time, filling out all that
yeah,
stuff and all the dimensions and how much does it weigh for shipping? And I mean, it's just it's undaunting the
yeah.
amount of stuff you have to do to be everywhere.
Well,
Yeah,
think
it really,
if you're just starting out, man, you're like a 19, 20, 21-year old, maybe just out of art school, you're barely paying the rent, you're working at a store just to get your canvas and your paints. That's hard enough. And then now you have
yeah,
to compete with somebody who has all of the access to sales and all of this stuff. But they're struggling. It's not like it's easy for you. I mean,
no,
you're you still got to do the work. You still got to
right,
put the photos
absolutely,
up. And like you were saying, like
right.
the lighting stand fell over. Dang it. What am I
Yeah,
gonna do?
I know, I know. Yeah.
You know.
And those kids that are just coming out, at least they can text with two thumbs. I'm still,
Uh,
they're quick with the texting.
but they're into so now they're into all the NFTs and the digital art. That's a
Yeah,
whole other
right.
world. You're gonna
Yeah.
stay with paint though. That's kind of your
Well, what I do is I don't do any digital art that I show anybody. But if I'm stuck on a painting, I've got an app that I love that I take a photo of the painting, bring it in there, and paint digitally to figure out different solutions. And
okay.
then I'll save whatever I like the best. And the next day I can solve, I can go on with painting based on that. So I do use a lot of apps. And my favorite is Procreate, which has an iPhone and an iPad version, and it's phenomenal. And if you want to do digital work, that is the greatest, one of
Yeah.
the best apps to do it on. I just don't personally want to put digital work out there, but I
Yeah.
love the tool for problem solving. It's fabulous. It's
There's
really
some
cool.
there's some the digital works out there. I was at the LA Art Show and it was 50, I think I want to say it was $50,000 for the file. And then you had
Wow.
to spend another $50,000 on the display. So
Really?
they were like these large digital LED displays. And yeah, if you wanted to buy the digital artwork and show it on your TV, you in your living room, you could. But if you wanted the full effect of what these moving picture paintings, basically digital paintings, you needed to buy the display, and it was like another $50,000. And
Well, if I'm spending $50,000 on a file, I'm buying the display. I'm not putting it up on my TV. You've got to have the display.
it's a $50,000 screensaver. Come on.
Yeah.
I'll just go back to flying toasters. It's
Yeah, really. Wow. That's amazing. That's a whole nother world.
Do you you had mentioned, we touched on this a little bit, but you had mentioned, I know as I talk to people, whether it's in my various areas of art, writing, painting not so much, but writing, filmmaking, acting, whatever, there's days where you just kind of wake up and you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Should I be doing? Does anyone care that I'm doing this?
Right.
And you would kind of voice, like, it's almost like an imposter syndrome. You and I
Right.
chatted about that a little bit. Do you still have days like that? Or
Oh, absolutely.
How do you get
I
through them?
probably, you know, I push through. I just say, I feel like there's greatness in there somewhere. I just have to keep doing the bad paintings till the good paintings come out. So, and some days I have a little, leather seating thing in the middle of my gallery. And sometimes I lay there and look at Instagram all day. I just, some days I can't push through it and I just don't paint. And other days I just say, you got to push through it. You've got to figure out what works for you. But
Yeah.
I think every creative person has imposter syndrome at some point, and it doesn't matter how many paintings I've sold. I've sold hundreds of paintings and, some for, 5 figures. And I still will have days where I like, oh my God, people are going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing here, that it is really hard. We're really hard on ourselves. And
Yeah.
it's, also being an artist, I'm here alone a lot. I'm in a building with a bunch of people, but I don't see them. I'm just in my gallery, in my studio all day. And, it's just sometimes it does get really tough. And I think, oh my God, I'm just so bad at it. And some days I feel like I forget how to paint. I forget how to mix paint, put it on canvas. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then other days it flows and it's just really wonderful. So, you just can't let those days where you feel like you're a fraud take over. You just gotta, even if I do a bad painting, I'd rather sit there and do something to push through it than just sit there and feel like a fraud. So,
When you push through it, when you're working on the paintings, do you force yourself to finish it, or do you just kind of go until, do you reach a point where you're like, okay, this one isn't going anywhere, or do you make sure that you accomplish something?
Sometimes I just get to a point in the day where I'm going to go home and the painting might not be finished. But other times, a lot of times, last thing I usually do is take an iPhone picture of my painting and look at it at home, because I want to look at it in a different format and a different size and everything. But no, I don't think, it's not a matter of getting it finished unless it's a commission. So I do a lot of commissions, and I meet everyone's deadline. So if they give me a deadline, I definitely do it. I'm not an artist that puts stuff off. If I have a deadline, I'm going to get it done. So I might stay and do that. But sometimes if it's not working, it's not going to help to keep pushing through. At a certain point, 5 o'clock hits, 5:30, 6 o'clock, I go home. So
Do you do
Yeah,
progressions? Like as you work on a painting, do you take pictures to show how you work through it?
I have. I take a lot of progression pictures. Now, a lot of times I don't post it. You know, paintings go through a lot of ugly stages. So it doesn't mean that it's going to end up ugly, but they go through a lot of ugly stages. So I don't
Yeah,
really want to put those on Instagram because people
right.
say, oh man, that's ugly, you know? So I try, you know, sometimes I'll put a progression on a video, you know, still thing where you see the progression and then you see the finish, because if
Hmm.
you leave them with ugly, then they think ugly, you know. So
Yeah, yeah.
but
I find I would say I find I would sometimes I'll post those, and a lot of times I'll post them under stories to make sure they go away really quick because I don't want them
yeah,
around forever. But I find, because I'm still so far at the other end of the learning spectrum, for me it's I need those photos, because then when the painting turns out a certain way, then I'll go back and I'll be like, well, how did I do that? How did I get
yeah,
that to look like that? So then I'll go back through my picture and I'm like, oh, because I laid this over this over this, or I use this type of a stroke, or I use this type of a palette knife or whatever. That's how I got that effect. And part of for me, and I'd be curious what you think of this. I used to also work as a photographer, and
mhm,
for me, if I couldn't recreate a certain look, then I wasn't experienced at doing that.
yeah,
If somebody looked at my photo and they're like, "How did you do that?" and I'm like, "I don't know."
yeah,
I needed to be able to be, if somebody to hire me, somebody looked at me and said, "I want a photo like that." I have to be able to reach back in my brain and go, "Okay, this is how I created that look. This is how I created that lighting scheme." And it's the same with painting. It's like I want to be able to go back and be like, "Oh, this is how I got that result." So that's the process for me.
and that's funny because sometimes magic happens and I have no idea how I did it. But I had a painting that a woman loved. She wanted it for her guest bedroom or whatever, but it was vertical and she needed it horizontal. And it was a technique I've really only done a few times. It was gesso and alcohol inks, which is just some really weird, this is kind of it you can see here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like a normal painting, but the way it's done is different. It was all done with palette knives and the whole bit. So I tried to do a horizontal of that, and that painting, sometimes magic only happens once.
Yeah.
But I had another woman who, I have an email list, and I sent out a painting. It was 12 by 12, 12 inches by 12 inches. And she loved it. She brought it, you know, she came in, she bought that painting, and she said, I'm redoing my living room and I want it 60 by 60. And your blues aren't my blues. Here's my fabric. I need these blues. And seriously, I mean, that happens. And it was a much darker blue in the whole bit. So I had done that. That was one of those magical paintings that fell on a 12 by 12 canvas while I was, you know, thinking otherwise. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about it, and there it happened. And so I told her I could do it because that's what we do. You know, I paint for a living. So I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. So, you know, I love problem solving. So I sat and thought, how will I do it that large? And actually, I created a very beautiful painting for her. Now, it didn't look like the other one because the colors were darker. Her blues were dark, and you know, and you're never going to paint the same thing twice. It's just not going to
Right.
happen. But I did figure out a way to create that for her. And talk about moments of terror when I mean, it's 60 by 60, you know, it's a huge painting, and it just really can be really crazy figuring out how to take something so small and so successful and make it that huge. You
Yeah.
know, it's not always easy. I don't The hardest thing I think is doing the same painting twice. It's just really hard because, you know, that magic happened. It's gone. It's
Yeah.
done. So
I've run into that because I started developing kind of a style. And
that's good.
but
I
even though
wish I would.
it was a style, it was each one was a little bit different, but I don't want to fall into everyone being a different version of the same kind of it was kind of like I call it an audio burst. It's basically just, I'm going to send you photos when all this is over.
I can't wait.
um
I didn't know you painted beforehand. That's not on your
I
resume.
almost sent it to you, and I was like, nah, I don't want to. I just wanted to know that I actually know the difference between acrylic and oil. That's about all
Oh,
that's
good.
all you need to know at this point. Oil smells. um but there's a point where I did feel like I was kind of doing the same thing over and over. So it was like, they're different, they're unique, but it's still the same base. So I can see how, as an artist, you definitely want to branch out and try something a little bit different. I can't do portraits to save my life. I know that's my weakness, and I don't even want to try. So I can mark that off. But I
You
can
know
still get
why
into
I
other
don't
things.
do portraits? I don't do portraits because nobody knows what they look like. Anybody that's over 40, let's say 50 years old, they still think they look like they're 30. And I have done portraits of doctors. I don't do them anymore, but I had a doctor, he and his wife both wanted separate portraits. I nailed hers right away, gardener, the whole bit. She was in her garden. And he wanted reading a book, and he was probably 70, and he kept saying, no, 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 I'm going to send you more pictures. And so he'd send me more pictures, and they were all when he was 50. So in his mind, he didn't look 70, he looked 50.
He
So
sounds like
how do
he's
you?
on a dating app. He sounds
Yeah,
must be
but
current.
there are people that love to do portraits, not me. That's not for me. And basically they do that. They take away a lot of the aging and make the person look younger.
Yeah.
And I just have no desire to do that. So
It just reminds me of
yeah.
those old stories you'd hear about, like the kings that would have their royal portrait painted, and they're like,
Right.
no, that's not me. I have hair.
No, right. Yeah.
No
Well, and
jowls.
then there's these mothers that send you pictures of their kids, and they know their kids inside out. And you've got 3 photos that you're looking at, you don't know what that kid really looks like. That, I mean, these photos were moments caught.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh no, her nose is much more upturned. Well, not in those photos. It's not. So yeah, it's just a crazy life to be a portrait artist.
Well, that's when you can go Picasso, and you're like, well, I see them with 3 noses and
Right. That's
4
right.
eyes, and that's my
Yeah.
vision. Don't mess with my
That,
vision. I'm the
that's
artist.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
the
I
beret
tell them
smoking artist.
I tell them if they want something that's figurative of somebody they know, I tell them I'm not a portrait painter, but I paint the essence. You'll know it's
Ooh,
that person. You like that?
I
That's a big
do.
word. Yeah.
That's good.
I
That's
tell them people will know it's that person, but it's not going to be a realistic painting of that person.
yeah.
So I will do those, but that's it.
Well,
So
nowadays they have I have a friend who got one of those portrait photo realistic paintings. Have you seen those where they you
mm,
send them a photo and they manipulate it into a portrait,
yeah.
but it's usually like some crazy like his is a him and his wife as like a duchess and a duke. They're all
Oh,
wearing. You see him going around Instagram, or it's like, be the royal portrait that you always wanted, because we always apparently wanted to be King Richard.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Didn't know that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's an old industry, but I like the essence. I might,
Yeah.
yeah, I might steal
Steal that. That's good. I,
my
it's
abstract
totally up for
audio burst
grabs.
paintings. It's the essence.
Yes, that's right.
So
That's right.
So when you do the smaller paintings versus the larger ones, that's I know I've talked about that with my mom, who's a painter, and I've talked about it with my friend who's the muralist. There's a big difference between doing a little 12 by 12 or doing a 48 by 48. How do you
Mhm.
approach the differences?
I love to paint large. If you can see my studio, almost everything in here is large. I'll do some, I don't even, a lot of people will, a lot of artists do studies. I don't even do a lot of that. I get an idea and I paint it large. So I'll do some small paintings from time to time, 12 by 12s, 24 by 24, but I love to work big. I love, the bigger the canvas, I'm ready to jump in there. So, it's just, I don't know, small paintings, small brushes, and large paintings, big, huge brushes. So
do you stretch your own canvases?
I don't, yes, I do. And I don't. I don't stretch them for abstracts or figurative or things like that. I stretch them all for my fluid acrylics because they're all done unstretched. But it's a pain stretching canvas. It's
Wait, so
very
you do just the bare canvas? You don't.
the fluid acrylic that I staple
Because you
onto
use the
sports,
levels.
right?
Right.
Those are primed canvas that comes on rolls.
Okay.
And I unroll a length of it, but I also will unroll a big length of canvas and staple it to one of my walls and do an abstract on that. I love doing that too. I don't really like the bounce of a canvas. I like working on, like panels, like wood panels, but they're too heavy to ship. They're too heavy to move around. I've got a 60 by 60 wood panel in here, and that thing is heavy. So,
but you get an interesting, I've done some smaller wood panels, and you get the way the paint adheres to it, especially if you use, I'm very big into using mediums with my paint. So I get that texture. I'm all about the texture. I think it's the synesthesia in me. It's just like, I've got to get the texture with the color, with the spread. It all has to come together, but you get a much different response from the paint on the wood panels. But God, I could imagine a huge wood panel. You're talking hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, they are really heavy.
Yeah.
So a lot of times on abstracts, as I'm painting them, I like to turn them, and keep turning them until I get what I like. And these really large, I've got one that's 60 by 60, one that's 48 by 60. And sometimes I stretch canvas over them so I don't get the bounce.
Yeah.
It's like working, but then it's on canvas and I can take it off of there and put it on stretcher bars, or I can ship it and let them stretch it out there wherever.
That's why I like the floor though. As I get older, it's harder to get up and off the floor. I'm the first to admit it, but
those knees,
I like being able to walk around it.
Yeah, I like that.
And you get that 360 feel, and you kind of look, and I totally know what you mean. You're like, suddenly you've been working on it one direction, and then you look at it the other direction, and you're like, oh no, now it's this way. And now it's this way. Another thing I'll do, and this would be interesting about your abstracts. My mother, again, she's going to listen to this and be like, hold on, wait a second. You can't talk about me like this. But she was, one of her things she brought up, and her instructor mentioned it to her, is like, you have to sign them. She's like, you're not signing your work. And I'm like, well, I do. I sign it on the back. And she's like, but you should sign it on the front. I'm like, no, because my stuff is abstract. And I don't want to tell who's viewing it which way, not that I've sold. I don't know if I've sold any. No, I've given them away. But I want them to figure out which way it goes on the wall, because it's going to speak to them differently. So I'll always stamp it on the back and write it. And I try not to be very specific about the direction. And it's funny. She started out in portraits. She did a lot of animals and that kind of thing. And then when I started painting, she started being like, well, wait a minute. I think I understand this abstract thing now. So now she's trying the abstract painting. And it was difficult for her. I don't think I'm revealing any secrets, but it was difficult for her because she came from such a background of portraiture and such a background of this is what it's supposed to look like, that to make that jump to abstract, it took her a couple tries. It took her
it's not easy.
Yeah, because she's gonna kill me for this. She would constantly send me pictures, and she's like, do you see the dog in the abstract? Do you see the face? And she actually sent me one where she took a marker and she drew the face on the painting and sent it to me, like, here, see the face. But now she's
to send me some of her work too.
But now she sees it, and it's like we were talking about the balance of the abstract. There is a balance to the abstract, and people don't understand that. Like, oh, you just throw paint, you just toss it and whatever happens. It's like, no, I'm like, I have a whole pile, like I'm sure you do, of
Yeah,
ones where I'm like, it's off balance, it's not
right.
right.
It's not working. Yeah.
There's a whole saying about creating randomness on purpose is nearly impossible. There's
Oh,
that whole kind of idea
yeah.
where, paint splatter. I have one that I've absolutely loved, and then I tried to do a white splatter across it, and the white got all messed up, and it didn't come out balanced, and it just the whole thing's done.
Yeah. I
It's
know. I hear you.
I know. I'm like, what am I telling you?
Yeah. Yeah. I have practiced drips before on something else before I drip them on my canvas because, you need it to work. You've got a
Yeah.
lot of work underneath there and you just can't risk.
Do you
So,
ever try things other than brushes and like
oh,
other utensils? Like, what do you use? What are some of your tricks there?
well,
If I'm not
uh,
stealing.
yeah, no, I use the back of the paintbrush. I use the back of the pencil. I used corn on the cob makes the coolest mark.
Oh,
That
to
was one of
roll it
my,
on the canvas.
yeah,
Oh,
you
I didn't think
roll
of
the
that.
corn. Yeah. And then you can't, once you tell people it looks like corn, but it's a really cool random pattern because all the
Hmm.
kernels are different sizes. But yeah, I've done that before. I've done curlers. They have a great technique that you can, you just don't tell people that it's curlers,
Right.
there's I use a lot of brayers in my work. Here, I'm going to show you one. Here's a little one, but I've got them like all different sizes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I use a ton of brayers. I love brayers. I love, what do you want to call them? They're like palette knives, but they're made out of plastic, like blades
Oh,
and
like the
stuff that,
spackle, the larger like spackle
no, actually,
things.
sometimes you can get them with cut lines in them, and that makes
Oh,
that
yeah.
line. But a lot of them that I use are just flat. I'm looking at my table here to see if I have any out, and I don't. But they're made by Catalyst. They're Princeton, and they're just like a wedge of plastic that you can use to pull paint with. And I'm always looking for any mark that takes my hand out of it, because a paintbrush, you've got the brush and your hand and you're putting it on. So if you can put paint on with anything else, I just love doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll, stamp with different things. The bottom of a paint thing, just stamp on there. I love using all kinds of random stuff.
So
So
do you go, so you and your husband, you have to run to Home Depot to pick up something because it's something in the house broke, and you guys are wandering through trying to find this part, but you're actually wandering up and down the aisles going, wait a minute, that
right.
that would make a cool print. That would
Oh,
make
yes. I've done that many a time.
your
They'll
poor
say, "What are
husband.
you buying that for?" And I'm going, "Oh, art. I can, that'll make a cool mark. I'm just sure of it. I wish I had some of my weird stuff sitting around here, but I don't. I just love all kinds of different marks.
I
That's just
get it.
fascinating to me. And sometimes they don't even end up in the final painting, and sometimes they do. But I love layers. You like texture. I like
Mhm.
layers. I like looking through and seeing all the work that's underneath. And sometimes with the layers, you don't see what's underneath, but I know they're there. And I know that it's underneath all of this is all these different layers. So
Yeah.
I just keep building them up. Sometimes I take a sander. Oh, excuse me, my phone fell. I take a sander and sand back the layers, to get different techniques. And
Yeah, I know a painter who does that, and it works really well when she uses a lot of purples and really rich darker colors,
right,
and when she sands, it gives it
sands
this
through
cool
them.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this has been so much fun. This has been
You're great.
this hey, this is I enjoyed this. This was a chance to kind of get my painter freak flag going, so that was kind of neat. Learned a couple things. So what are the best places for people to check out your work, since you're not the TikToker yet? Your time,
Not
I'm telling you though,
TikToker.
actually, if you be careful of falling into the hole. But if you type in abstract art or abstract painting, I will be the first person to say there are some pretty impressive videos out there of what people are
I'm
doing.
sure there are. I just don't know how many masters I can serve in the social media world. It's hard to hit everything. LinkedIn, I don't know. But I'll think about TikTok. I
If it
promise.
just be careful you don't fall into the hole.
I'm just not.
Just
I don't.
really.
I didn't get that funny bone gene. I love watching all the funny ones.
There's some great
Oh
ones.
my gosh, and they're hilarious. And I think, oh, I can't do that. So I don't.
If you
do
go to
any
the
of it,
art though, there's a lot of young painters who are on there. I will admit there's a lot where I saw them where I was like, wow, I feel like I've seen this painting 1,000 times. But again,
Right.
we all start somewhere.
Right.
And I totally get that. And there's others where they'll do a time lapse or they'll do, here's a technique they're working on. There's some, and bless them, where they're just like, like you talked about imposter. There are some who post stuff and they're just like, am I doing it right? Am I doing the right thing with my life? Tell me, please. And you want to reach out to them. You want to support them and be like, you know what, good for you. And I'll try to say something nice, because I get it. Whatever creative field you're in, there's that moment of like, oh.
Tell them the 1,000 painting thing.
Oh, that's true. Anything. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
I work at the coffee shop, so I can afford canvas. Cardboard. Yeah. Just paint on cardboard. So,
all right.
Where can we find your work, Carol?
My website is Carol MacConnell, and MacConnell is hard to spell. It's Mac, MacConnell, carolmcconnell.com. And on Instagram, I'm at carol.mcconnell.art, A-R-T. Okay. And that McConnell's a tough thing. M-A-C-C. It's got lots of double consonants, but I'll tell you what everybody forgets. It's that A. It's Mac, not Nick. So anyway, I'd love for people to check things out. And I can't wait to get your photos to see your work and your mom's.
Oh, I'll definitely send it off. Be kind.
That'd be great.
That'd be
great. Oh, I will.
What are you working on today? Before I let you go, what are you working on today?
I've got a series that I'm hoping to launch in the beginning of November. So I've been working on that, it's all going to be a fluid acrylic series. And sometimes while things are drying, I told you I had a bunch of work on paper that I'm not loving, that I am taking out and redoing. So the combination of the both, the big pieces on fluid acrylic for my launch and small pieces on paper. So it's kind of interesting.
We'll get back to work.
It's
work, artist work. You got bills.
Get that
there you
whip
go.
Out. There.
Well, thanks so much. We'll spread the word, and everybody go check out your work. I really enjoyed going through your portfolio, and it inspired me. It always inspires me to see anybody's work, but to see yours. And also I love how you have the different styles.
Oh, thank you.
So that, the figure work, I enjoyed the abstract work, so really enjoyed that. So thanks for spending the time with me.
Thank you. I really loved it. You've been great to talk to.
Thanks.
For the highways of America, which for so many years were an assortment of as many designs and pavements as there were states, are now becoming one big road that can take you anywhere faster, safer, and more directly than ever before. What is this big road? Where is it going? How much has been built? How much is yet to come? These are questions we ask. Certainly traveling the entire system would be a memorable experience, but few of us have the time for such a trip.
All rights reserved. Viking Dog 2021.